Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. In this second part here, inshallah, we're going to be speaking more about exactly how are we going to be learning the Arabic language in this course, and the best method, the best approach for us to learn Arabic with the specific goal that we have, which is understanding the Quran. So the question is, how does someone acquire language? What's the best way that someone can acquire language? What's the best method, the best path that someone should take to learn a language? This is not an easy answer. Why? Because there's an entire field of study called second language acquisition, SLA, that deals with this topic. So there's an entire field of study that you can have a PhD in, which is second language acquisition, which is part of applied linguistics, which deals just with this topic. What are the best methods? What are the best approaches to teach and for someone to learn a language? Okay, so there's many methods and theories that have been proposed, that have been developed. Okay, now, inshallah, based on what we need, and based on my studies in applied linguistics, my BA in that field, the ones which are most suitable, okay, the methods that are the most suitable for second language acquisition with the goal of academic competence, meaning what? The best method for us with our specific goal, not in a general sense, right? Depending on the goal, there's different tools that you need to use, right? So we covered before that there's two reasons why people learn languages: for academic competence and for interpersonal competence. Interpersonal competence is face-to-face conversation, face-to-face interaction, speaking. For that, the best method will most likely be communicative language teaching, which is another method, but that's not what we're going to be using here. Why? Because our goal is to have academic competence, to use the Arabic language, first and foremost, to be able to read the Quran and understand it, and read the books of scholars and understand it, read ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ and understand them. So with that in light, inshallah, these are the best methods that we should use, okay? So the ones which are most suitable for SLA, second language acquisition, with the goal of academic competence are the grammar translation method in red there, and the acquisition learning model of crashing, okay? So I'm gonna break these down right now. So what in the world does grammar translation mean, which is one of the two methods that we're going to be using to learn Arabic? Grammar translation method is very simple, okay? It's a teaching method with an emphasis on grammar and translation of sentences. But I'm saying, oh, no, that doesn't sound really fun. Grammar rules and translating sentences, that's not what we want to do. Why are we saying this? Why are we taking this path? Why this approach? The reason why is, as Hall mentions in language teaching methods, perspectives, and possibilities, in China, grammar translation prospered until the 1960s, as it both resembles traditional Chinese methods of learning and teaching and met the needs of the post-revolution communist China by developing learners' reading skills. So as Hall was trying to explain to us right here, is that the grammar translation method was used until the 1960s in China. Why? Why this method specifically was being used? Because it was the best method to develop learners' reading skills. We read the Quran. In an era when English-speaking nations were anti-communist, this enabled China to access Western scientific and technical knowledge. So they used the grammar translation method. Why? Because it had a specific goal, which was to develop reading skills in English so that they could access the knowledge of Western countries, which was barred from them due to their communist beliefs and other reasons. So the grammar translation method, as this quote here mentions and many other proofs show, is the best method to develop learners' reading skill in a language. Not speaking, but that's not our goal. So we read the Quran. So we want to develop our reading skills so we'll be able to access the wealth of knowledge that our ancestors, the Salaf, they left us in terms of statements and in terms of the wealth of knowledge, the sea of knowledge, which is Islamic knowledge. So grammar translation method will be the best way. So putting some emphasis on grammar, translating sentences, reading, and focusing on reading. Now, someone might read this quote and say, this is talking about China. Why is this guy talking about China? This is not important. And and they can keep on, maybe they can say this is not very, it's not a good example for our specific goal. The response to that would be, as Imam Kisai, right? How does this tie with the Quran? How does China and reading skills and so on and so forth tie with the Quran? Well, as Imam Kisai, who was one of the 7 reciters of the Quran and is also one of the two, the one who founded one of the 2 schools of thought in grammar schools, because in Arabic language, there are 2 grammar schools, the school of Kufa and the school of Basra, which is not very important for us right now. But Imam Kisai was not only an imam in the qira'at, was one of the 7 recitations after him, named after him. But likewise, he was an imam in the Arabic language, more specifically in grammar. Okay, so it says in this line in poetry, إذا لم يعرف النحو الفتى هاب ينتقى جملا فانقمع يقرأ القرآن وهو لا يعرف ما صرف الإعراب فيه وصنع فتراه ينسب الرفع مكان من نصب أو خفض رفع. The right Imam, he mentions here that if a man does not know grammar, he'll be shy to talk, right? If an Arabic speaker doesn't really know grammar well, he'll be shy to speak fusha, to speak, classical Arabic, because he knows he's going to make mistakes. And when he reads the Quran, he's going to have no clue what's going on. When this Arabic speaker that doesn't really know grammar will read the Quran, he'll have no clue what's going on. He'll have no clue why this word has a fatha, this word has a dhamma, this word has a kasara. How changing those endings can have a huge impact on the meaning. He won't really understand what's going on in the Quran. So then he mentions that you'll see that the person is going to start making grammatical mistakes when reading the Quran. So my main point here is that if you look at the scholars of Islam, okay, Imam Kisai and all these great scholars of the Quran, you'll see that they put a lot of emphasis on learning the Arabic language to a deep level, to learning grammar to a deep level. Really having a good understanding of this so they can have a better connection with the Quran. And for example, Imam Kisai, he became an imam in the Arabic language because he understood that the only way that he was going to be able to fully understand the qira'at, the different recitations of the Quran, the only way he was going to fully understand what was really going on in different recitations was if he had a very good understanding of the Arabic language. So he started studying the Arabic language because of that. So my main point here is that us, as people who are trying to be students of knowledge, we don't just want to know the Arabic language. We want to have a deep understanding of the Arabic language so we can have a deep connection with the Quran, which is Arabi, which is bilisan Arabi, in a clear Arabic Quran, in a clear Arabic speech, which is the highest form of eloquence in the Arabic language. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he challenged the Fusaha, he challenged the eloquent Arabs to bring something like it. فَلْيَأْتُوا بِحَدِيثٍ مِثْلٍ كَانُوا صَادِقِينَ. Allah says, let them bring, a speech like it if they're truthful in saying that it's not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our main point is that we don't just want to have a surface understanding of the Arabic language, we want to have a deeper understanding, and us putting some emphasis, just a little bit of emphasis on grammar will help us in achieving that. And more specifically, as Paul's quote here, is going to help us in developing our reading skills, which is the main method, the main usage, as we covered, that we're going to have in the Arabic language is reading, then listening, then writing, and then after that comes the rest. Okay, so that is grammar translation and how we're going to be learning the Arabic language. So we're going to be putting some emphasis on grammar. So the way I break it down is that in every single lesson, I'm going to start the lesson by breaking down in a very short video, 5 to 10 minutes. I'll break down the main grammar concept in that lesson. So lesson 1, for example, introduces us to a grammar concept. In the first video in the lesson, I quickly break down that grammar concept in a 5 to 10 minute video. After that, there's a quick quiz that quizzes you on the grammar concept. Then after that, we actually go through a live example of the language and of that grammar concept through the Medina book. So that was the grammar translation. So we covered one of them, which has been read, which is the grammar translation method. What about the acquisition learning model? What is the acquisition learning model? So what is the acquisition learning model? The acquisition learning model is the concept that people have 2 systems that they use when studying a language. Okay, it's a concept that people have 2 systems they use when studying a language. The acquisition system and the learning system. The acquisition system is a subconscious knowledge of that language. What does this mean? Us as native speakers, we have something called grammar intuition. When I'm speaking English, I don't have a very good understanding of English grammar, but I know how things are supposed to sound. I know that if someone says, I go to the mosque, I know that's what I'm supposed to say, I went to the mosque. Can I break that down specifically in terms of grammar terms and stuff like that? No, but I have a subconscious knowledge of the language. I have an intuition concerning the grammar of that language that allows me to know when something's right or wrong. That's what's meant here by acquisition, okay? Then there's learning. There's the learning system when you're learning a language, which is the learning system is a conscious knowledge of the rules of a language, that I consciously know that in Arabic, the subject should come first. or not really, but it can come first, if you will. Or to be more specific, that the mubtada needs to be marfu, for example. Yani this is the conscious knowledge of the actual grammar rules. Because you actually know, okay, in English, the subject's supposed to come here, then the predicate is supposed to come there, and then the verb's supposed to come here. Like the actual conscious knowledge of the rules, that's the learning system. Okay, so these are the two systems that people have when they're learning a language. Now, obviously, what we really want is acquisition, right? How do you obtain acquisition? It's obtained by comprehensible input. Acquisition is obtained by comprehensible input. This may sound a bit strange, but I'm going to explain what comprehensible input means in a second. In terms of the learning, so the actual conscious knowledge of the rules of the language, that is obtained by grammar translation. So by us doing grammar translation, I'm going to give you the conscious knowledge of the rules of grammar, which is going to help you, as you're going to see. So that's how we're going to use our learning system with the grammar translation method. But what about acquisition? Obviously, what we really want is that we want to have the Arabic language as if it was our L1, that we don't need to always constantly be thinking about the rules, but it's actually we just know how it's supposed to sound like, and we're able to express ourselves when the time comes for that in a very natural way. So how are we going to get acquisition where we're going to be able to read fluently and understand how it's supposed to sound like, and so on and so forth? We're going to obtain that by comprehensible input. So the question is, what is comprehensible input? Comprehensible input is language, spoken or written, that is one level beyond the learner's current level. So for us, it would be an Arabic text, for example, or an Arabic speech that I can understand it, but it's still a bit challenging. Okay, so when you're reading a dialogue, for example, in Medina books, there's a lot of dialogues. When we're reading the dialogue, that dialogue there is comprehensible input. With the grammar that we're going to cover and the vocabulary that you're going to obtain, you're going to be able to understand from that dialogue maybe 70%, 50%, 40% on your own. The other, 80%, the other maybe 50% that you're not really understanding, that's challenging, I'm going to be here to help you understanding that by translating it for you. And if we continuously expose ourselves to comprehensible input, if we continuously, read comprehensible input, so text in Arabic, you can understand a bit of it, but there is some challenge in it that you need to go back to dictionary, some vocabulary you need to go back to dictionary to learn, some expressions that you may need to go search up online to learn. If we continuously do that, naturally you're going to start acquiring the language. Naturally you're going to start acquiring the language. So this is where the Medina books are going to come in. The Medina books, it gives us a lot of dialogues that are very easy to understand, okay? So in the beginning of the lesson, for example, lesson 1, first 2 videos, or the first video more specifically, I explained the grammar rule. After that, there's a quiz that, reinforces that grammar rule. After that, there's a video where I actually go through the dialogue in the Medina book, right? I go through the dialogue in the Medina book. When I go for that dialogue, that's comprehensible input. By us going through that dialogue, you're going to be able to understand maybe 50%, 40% of that dialogue, and that other 50 or 60% that you don't understand, that's challenging. That's what I'm going to be here to help you understand by translating it and by helping you understand the new vocabulary and the new expressions. And if you continuously do that for book 1, book 2, book 3, then after that, once you finish this course, you continue to also do that on your own. Naturally, you're going to start acquiring the Arabic language. Okay, so if we put everything together, it looks like this. We have grammar translation, which is going to teach us learned knowledge, so the conscious knowledge of the rules of grammar. Okay, that's what grammar translation is going to give us. We're going to get learned knowledge. Comprehensible input, which is the dialogues and the speeches later on that you're going to be listening to, and the text that you're going to be reading that are going to be challenging, and you're still going to be able to understand some of it. That's what's going to give you, by you continuously doing that, that's what's going to give you acquired knowledge. Subconsciously, you're going to remember certain expressions. You're going to remember certain word patterns. You're going to remember vocabulary. So subconsciously, you're going to start acquiring the actual language, okay? With that acquired knowledge, you're going to be able to start using the language for reading, for writing, and for speaking it, okay? Now, the learned knowledge, so the grammar rules and stuff, what are we going to do with that? What's the benefit of that? Is going to help you in monitoring. Okay, monitoring means, verifying that you're understanding the text correctly, verifying that there's no grammar mistakes when you're speaking, when you're writing, verifying that when you're reading correctly based on, the actual sense of the sentence. So the learned knowledge is going to help you in monitoring, in verifying the comprehensible input and your understanding of it. Does this sentence mean this? Well, let me break it down grammatically. This is the subject. This is the one doing the action. So the sentence means this. You understand? By you having learned knowledge, you're going to be able to do that. Verifying to make sure that when you're reading something, when you're hearing something, based on the grammar rules, oh yeah, that's the one doing the action, and that's the one who received the action. That's the meaning of the sentence. That's what's going to, so the learned knowledge is going to help you in comprehending the actual input that you're receiving, which is going to give you acquired knowledge. With acquired knowledge, you're going to be able to later on, inshallah, speak Arabic. You're going to be able to write Arabic to a certain extent. And when you're speaking Arabic, when you're writing Arabic, with the learned knowledge, you're going to be able to edit when you're making mistakes. So if I'm speaking, I said, Kana Muhammadan kabirun. Oh, no, that's just a mistake there. I remember that Kana is supposed to do this and this and this. And the correct sentence is Kana Muhammadun kabiran. So you're going to be able to catch yourself when you're making mistakes, either when speaking or when writing. How? By the conscious knowledge of the language. So that, in a brief sense, is how we're going to be doing this. So at the beginning of every single lesson, I use grammar translation to give you learned knowledge. Likewise, I make you translate sentences, which reinforces that learned knowledge. And then through the dialogues that we're going through in the actual Medina books, that's going to help you acquiring knowledge and actually having understanding, a subconscious understanding of the Arabic language. And with the conscious learned knowledge, you're going to be able to monitor both the inputs and monitor also the use in the language. So make sure you're not making mistakes and making sure you're understanding things correctly based on what the grammar dictates in the sentence itself. So that, in a very brief sense, is how we're going to, us specifically, be learning the Arabic language through the grammar translation method and the acquisition learning model. Inshallah, by doing this, by the end of this course, you'll be able to read the Quran and read ahadith and read the statements of the scholars with a very, inshallah, good understanding.